Open Google Maps. Find a lake in northern Portugal. Zoom in. No streets, no buildings, no sign that anyone has ever lived there. Just blue water and green hills. But once every few years, when the drought gets bad enough, the water drops. And what rises out of that lake is not mud. It is walls, stone doorways, pathways that people walked for 2,000 years until a government decided they were in the way. That is not even the strangest thing on this list. There are 7 places across Europe that Google Maps cannot show you because what is really there does not match what you see on your screen. Some are hidden by water. Some are hidden by pixels, and at least one was built to hide something underneath it. Number 7. Fabbriche di Careggine, Italy. In the mountains of Tuscany, there is a lake called Lago di Valle. It is a beautiful lake. People go boating on it. Postcards are sold. And directly beneath the surface, about 10 meters down, there is a medieval village that has been sitting there since 1946. Underneath the water, the past waits. Fabbriche di Careggine was a small settlement of iron workers, blacksmiths mostly. Families had lived there for centuries. Then, after the Second World War, the Italian government decided the valley was the perfect location for a hydroelectric dam. The village had to go. The decision was about electricity and progress, hydroelectric power over people. The residents were moved out. The dam was built. The water rose, and Fabbriche di Careggine disappeared. But here is where it gets strange. Every few decades, the lake needs to be drained for maintenance on the dam. And when the water goes down, the village comes back. The stone houses, the church, the bridge, the old cemetery, all of it sitting there in the mud, perfectly preserved, as if it has been waiting. The last time the lake was fully drained was 1994. Thousands of people came. Former residents, now elderly, walked through the streets of a village they had not seen since they were children. Some of them touched the walls of houses they had been born in. One woman found her family's fireplace. The iron hook where her mother had hung the cooking pot was still attached to the stone. 50 years underwater, and the hook had not moved. The Italian authorities have promised to drain the lake again several times since then. They never have. On Google Maps, you see a lake, a nice lake in the Tuscan mountains. There is nothing to suggest that an entire village is holding its breath underneath, or that an iron hook is still waiting for a pot that will never come back. Google Maps shows a calm surface and nothing more. Now imagine that lake, but instead of water hiding a village, it is soil hiding something far worse. Imagine the ground itself as a cover for secrets. Number 6. The Zone Rouge, France. Open Google Maps anywhere in northeastern France, between Verdun and Reims. You will see farmland, green fields, small villages connected by quiet roads. It looks like the most peaceful part of Europe. It is not. Underneath those fields, the First World War is still happening. Between 1914 and 1918, this stretch of France saw some of the most concentrated shelling in human history. Millions of artillery rounds were fired into the soil. When the war ended, the French government surveyed the damage and created a classification for the worst areas. They called it the Zone Rouge, the red zone. Over 1,200 square kilometers of land so saturated with unexploded shells, poison gas residue, arsenic, lead, and human remains that it was declared permanently unfit for human habitation. Parts of it were sealed off entirely. No farming, no building, no entry. That was over 100 years ago. And here is what Google Maps will not tell you. Those shells are still there. Every spring, French farmers in the fields bordering the Zone Rouge plow up unexploded munitions from their soil. They call it the iron harvest. They stack the shells at the edges of their fields, rusted, dirt-covered, still live, and wait for the army to collect them. This happens every single year since 1918. The French government estimates that at the current rate of clearance, it will take another 300 years to fully remove the munitions. And the démineurs, the bomb disposal specialists who do this work, still die on the job. Over 600 have been killed since the war ended. So the next time you look at a green field in northeastern France on Google Maps, a field where someone is growing wheat, where tractors drive in neat rows, remember that underneath it, there are shells that have been waiting to explode for over a century, and bones that have never been found. From a war that refuses to end to a church that refuses to drown. Number 5. Sant Roma de Sau, Spain. 65 kilometers north of Barcelona, there is a reservoir. For most of the year, it looks like any other reservoir. But if you visited in 2022 or 2023 or March 2025, you would have seen something impossible. A complete Romanesque church standing in the open air on dry, cracked earth in the middle of what your phone insists is a lake. The Church of Sant Roma was built in 1062. It survived nearly 1,000 years of wars, plagues, and earthquakes. What it did not survive was Francisco Franco, Spain's dictator. In the 1960s, Franco's government built a dam and flooded the valley. The church, the village, the farmland, all of it went under. For decades, only the tip of the bell tower poked above the waterline. Locals would point at it from their kayaks. That was all that was left. But Spain's drought has changed everything. In 2022, the Sau Reservoir dropped to 7% capacity. The entire church emerged. Tourists came by the thousands. They walked through the nave. They stood where the altar had been. And their navigation apps told them, in that calm, confident voice, that they were currently submerged in water. Here is what I keep coming back to. The Church of Sant Roma was made to last forever. 1062, 40 years before the First Crusade. And it did last. It is still standing. The thing that failed was not the church. It was the water that was supposed to hide it. What if Google Maps is not hiding something underwater, but under stone? Number 4. Houska Castle, Czech Republic. About 50 kilometers north of Prague, in a forest with no major roads and no nearby towns, there is a castle that should not exist. Houska Castle was built in the 13th century. It had no strategic value. It sat on no trade route. It had no water source, not even a well. It was built with no kitchen. Some of its windows are fake, painted on, not real. And for most of its history, nobody lived there. So why was it built? According to local legend, and this legend is old, older than the castle itself, the site sits on top of a bottomless hole, a crack in the earth. The locals called it a gateway to hell. The story goes that condemned prisoners were offered a pardon if they agreed to be lowered into the hole and report what they saw. The first man to try it began screaming within seconds. When they pulled him back up, he had aged 30 years. He died 2 days later. The castle was built directly over the hole. The chapel was placed on top of it. The walls were designed to face inward, not to keep enemies out, but to keep something in. Now I am not asking you to believe any of that. What I am asking you to notice is what happened next. In 1939, the Nazis invaded Czechoslovakia. Of all the castles in Bohemia, the Wehrmacht chose this one. A castle with no military value, no water, and no strategic purpose, 50 kilometers from Prague. They occupied it for 6 years. Locals reported strange lights and sounds at night. When the war ended, the Nazis had destroyed all records of what they did there. But during later renovations, skeletons of executed German soldiers were found buried in the courtyard. Nobody knows what the Nazis were doing at Houska. The records are gone. The witnesses are dead. The castle is open to tourists now. You can visit the chapel. You can look at the medieval frescoes on the walls, one of which shows a left-handed centaur, a symbol associated with Satan in the Middle Ages. And you can stand on the floor that covers the hole. The stone is cool. The chapel is silent. 700 years of silence, pressing down on whatever is underneath. On Google Maps, Houska Castle looks like any other medieval building in a Czech forest. There is no pin that says gateway to hell. There is no warning. There is just a castle, 50 kilometers from Prague, that was built for no reason anyone can prove, over a hole that no one has ever reached the bottom of. If you have made it this far, subscribe. It is free, and I promise you, number 3 is the one that made me look twice. Number 3. Volkel Air Base, Netherlands. Search for Volkel Air Base on Google Maps. Go ahead. What you will see is a patchwork of blurred polygons, greens and whites, covering an area in the province of North Brabant. Every building, every runways, every square meter of the base has been deliberately obscured. The Dutch government says this is because of an old law requiring all military and royal facilities to be hidden on aerial photographs. That is technically true, but it does not explain why Leeuwarden, another Dutch airbase, 20 minutes away by jet, is perfectly visible. The reason Volkel is different is 22 American B-61 nuclear bombs stored in underground vaults beneath the aircraft shelters. This was one of the worst-kept secrets in European defense. Everyone suspected it. Nobody confirmed it until 2 former Dutch prime ministers went on television in 2013 and simply said yes. Ruud Lubbers, prime minister from 1982 to 1994, said that he could not believe those silly things were still there in 2013. But the real embarrassment came in 2021. Bellingcat, the investigative journalism group, discovered that American soldiers guarding the nuclear weapons at Volkel had been using public flashcard websites to study for their security exams. The flashcards contained the exact locations of the vaults, the number of weapons, and details about security protocols. All publicly accessible, all indexed by Google. So here is the irony. The Dutch government spends decades blurring Volkel on Google Maps to hide the nuclear weapons. And the soldiers guarding those weapons post the answers on the internet to help them pass their tests. From hiding weapons to hiding ears. Number 2. Teufelsberg, Berlin, Germany. On Google Maps, Teufelsberg looks like a hill in a forest on the western edge of Berlin. You can see some white dome-shaped structures on top. It looks like it might be an old observatory, or maybe a weather station. It is none of those things. It is 3 layers of history stacked on top of each other, and every single layer was meant to be secret. Layer 1. In 1937, the Nazis broke ground on a military technical college, part of Albert Speer's grand plan for a new Berlin called Germania. The building was never finished. The war got in the way. Layer 2. After the war, the Allies tried to demolish it. They could not. The structure was too massive, too well built. So they did the next best thing. They buried it. Between 1950 and 1972, 12 million cubic meters of rubble from bombed-out Berlin were piled on top. Roughly 400,000 destroyed houses compressed into a single hill. It became the highest point in West Berlin. Layer 3. The Americans realized that the highest point in West Berlin was the perfect place to listen. In 1963, the NSA built a listening station on top of the rubble, on top of the Nazi college. 5 radar domes, part of the Echelon network, a secret surveillance program shared by the United States, Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. For 26 years, they listened to everything that moved through the air on the other side of the wall. After the wall fell in 1989, the station went silent. The Americans left, the equipment was stripped out, and then began one of the strangest ownership sagas in Berlin's history. A development company bought it for luxury apartments. That failed. David Lynch, the filmmaker, tried to buy it for a transcendental meditation university. That also failed. The Berliners said no to all of it. Today, Teufelsberg is a ruin, covered in over 400 works of street art. You can walk through the empty corridors where analysts once listened to Soviet radio chatter. You can climb into the largest radar dome and whisper, and the dome sends your voice back to you in a perfect spherical echo. And underneath all of it, under the graffiti, under the domes, under the rubble of 400,000 houses, the Nazi college is still there. Too heavy to move, too solid to destroy. Buried, but not gone. Google Maps labels Teufelsberg as a park, a green area with a walking trail. It does not mention the SPY station. It does not mention the rubble. And it certainly does not mention that if you could dig straight down through the art, through the concrete, through the compressed remains of a destroyed city, you would hit the floor of a building that Albert Speer designed for Adolf Hitler. After Teufelsberg, I want to bring you somewhere quieter, somewhere the water has a different kind of secret. Number 1. Vilarinho de Furna, Portugal. This is the lake from the beginning. And now I can tell you what Google Maps will not. For over 2,000 years, a village stood on the banks of the River Homem in northern Portugal. Vilarinho de Furna. Oral tradition says it was founded during the Roman Empire. For all those centuries, the village governed itself, one representative per family. Every decision made face to face. A German traveler who visited in the late 1700s wrote that the villagers lived better than most German peasants he had seen. He was almost envious. Then the Portuguese government decided to build a hydroelectric dam on the River Homem. Construction began in 1967. At that time, Vilarinho de Furna had almost 300 inhabitants, 57 families, 80 houses. The government offered compensation. The rate was half an escudo per square meter of land. For context, half an escudo could buy you half a sardine. That was the value the Portuguese state placed on 2,000 years of continuous habitation. The price of half a fish. The villagers had no choice. They tried to save what they could. They packed their belongings. They stripped the houses bare. They took the furniture, the tools, the roof tiles, everything that was not stone. The last inhabitant left in 1971. In 1972, the dam walls were sealed. The river rose, and Vilarinho de Furna went under. But the village did not disappear. Not completely. Because every few years, when the drought is bad enough, the water level drops, and Vilarinho de Furna comes back. The stone walls, the pathways, the door frames, the outline of the chapel, all of it rises from the lake like something that refuses to be forgotten. In 1985, the former villagers created an association to keep the memory alive. They built a museum. They told their children the stories. And when the water drops, they come back. They walk the streets they walked as children. They touch the walls of houses that have been underwater for half a century. On Google Maps, you see a lake. A nice lake in a national park. There is nothing to tell you that underneath the surface, an entire way of life, A 2,000-year-old democracy is sitting in the dark, waiting for the next drought to let it breathe. 7 places. 7 lies that Google Maps tells you without meaning to, because some things are too old, too dangerous, or too inconvenient to show on a screen. In Fabbriche di Careggine, a village waits under a Tuscan lake, and an iron hook still hangs by a fireplace that has not seen fire in 80 years. In the Zone Rouge, green fields hide a century of unexploded shells and bones that have never been found. In Sant Roma de Sau, a church that has survived 1,000 years keeps outlasting the water meant to erase it. In Houska, a castle guards a hole that nobody can explain. In Volkel, blurred polygons cover nuclear warheads that soldiers accidentally posted online. In Teufelsberg, a Nazi ruin is buried under 400,000 houses with an American spy station on top. And in Vilarinho de Furna, 2,000 years of history sit at the bottom of a lake, valued by a government at the price of half a sardine. The next time you open Google Maps, zoom in. On a lake in Europe, look for the one with no roads around it, no buildings, no sign of life. And ask yourself, what is underneath? If this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe. There are places in Europe that are far stranger than this, and I am just getting started.